You're connected to audio.
Hello.
Hello. Let's put our video on. This is recording. Oh, my client connection is encrypted. This is people will get to see this at the start of the recording. Maybe we'll get Kelly to take it out.
What is that?
I have no idea. It's just under the little recording doodad. It says client connection is encrypted. To which I say, cool. That's cool.
Imagine if it's only you and me.
Bae, tell me about your stories about money.
How much time do we have?
What would you say?
Lots of things, dude.
I'm gonna admit some people into this room.
Okay.
Admit this guy. Boom. I'll get my pen set up. Oh, hello, Andrea.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
We're in Andrea's kitchen.
Oh yeah. I feel like she's looking down on me.
I feel like she can't hear us.
It's a real power play. Yeah, I don't know if she can hear us yet. Can
now I
us,
can.
Andrea?
Now
there
I
we
can.
go.
Yeah. It's
It's
like you're
all
looking
happening
down on us. It's a real power play.
Yeah, it's not a great angle either, but you know.
You look wonderful.
We'll
You
it.
always do.
Oh, thank you. I'm taking you outside. We're on the move.
Happening.
And I'm giving Chris the
Lovely.
baby monitor. Look at that. I get maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, who knows?
Hey, Jess. Hey, Alton.
Adam.
Hello. We're going to wait just a couple minutes for anyone else to show up, and then we're
How
going to
is
start.
Alton
proper.
all like airbrushed and fabulous looking? What's that?
Yeah, you've got a
situation?
nice soft focus in your background.
Thank you.
It's the reverse Star Trek.
I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to be great. Yeah. Wonderful. I need a book. Okay.
I'm going to pour my tea. That's how we do this. That's important. Hey, Rob.
What kind of tea? What kind of tea are you drinking?
Today I've got a little creamy Earl Grey.
I know
Going
that
back
guy.
to the classic. Yeah, he is a good Earl.
Rob. Sorry, Adam. Not that I wasn't interested,
It's
but
quite
Rob,
all right. I
where
don't
are
need to
you?
talk about my tea. That's fine. I can let this go. Is that what I should do right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where's Rob? What tea? I don't know.
I don't know. I've
Okay.
ever seen you outside on a video, like in real life. Yes.
I know. Well, I'm very pale, so I burn easily, so I don't go outside much. No.
Mm.
We decamped from Brooklyn like 2 months ago because my mom had abandoned her house in Maryland in the suburbs to go down to Florida. So it was actually like just after you and I spoke last, Bay. And she was like, I have this empty house. Will you please go not
Live in
be
it?
cooped up in an apartment? And we are like, sure. So we came down,
That sounds
quarantined
awesome.
for a few weeks. Yeah,
Oh, more
now we
people
have
say
a
that.
screened-in porch. Yeah, so it's nice.
Can we see? Can you rotate it so that we can have a look at it?
Sure. You can even see Alice that you both know. Let's see. So got the porch.
Oh,
Got
look at that.
Alice
That's
doing
screened in.
beautiful.
Oh, Alice
Hi,
is getting
Alice.
down low. Hello. Okay. And then there's a nice wicker chair. Do you have
That's right.
anything to sort of shake at the kids on your lawn?
Oh, no, I usually just stick to the fist, just shaking the fist at the lawn.
Yeah, that's a good one. You go outwards like that, sort of like start the revolution as opposed to this
That's
one.
right. That's right. Actually, I usually shout at the squirrels. There's about 1,000 squirrels that live in the yard, and they dig up the yard. And I'm like, oh, this is suburban life. You like get mad about animals messing up your lawn. Got it. Cool.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice though, because my parents retired and their life became very I don't know, idyllic or peaceful. And fortunately there's wildlife around their house for them to get upset about. Wildlife and people stealing
Yeah.
stuff off of their garden stall. So that's how that
Ooh,
goes.
bonus.
One of our,
Okay.
Yeah.
they have a critter cam
Go
that they
ahead, Bay,
use
and
to
then we're
catch
going
the
to
people
start.
thieving,
Everyone,
not the
if you
bears.
just arrived, this is the part of the call where we talk nonsense. Go ahead, Bay.
You're welcome. I'm done. That was basically it.
Okay, cool. I'm going to admit some people. Do you want to provide an intro, Bay, while I'm managing people coming into this room?
Oh, sure.
Cool.
Well, thank you for coming to the call about money. this would be kind of like one of those topics that's so top of mind that's really easy to skip over. Like everyone's got some story about money, and everyone, I mean, I don't know too many people who are like, I just have all the money in the world that I ever wanted. Like that's just not generally the feeling that you get about it from most of the people that we know. And it's like one of those things like, I think as children, I don't know, or like in the Victorian age, we apparently agreed to not discuss, like we don't talk about it. Money, politics, and religion. Also like a whole bunch of other things, but those ones especially. And so it's one of those things where we think we're really special with our relationship with money, and it's very likely that we're not. And so, Adam, who is doing things, I'm just going to speak for him now. I think this was like a few weeks ago, posted something about like relationship to money, value, and worth, and then wondered if people would be interested in a conversation on it. And here you are today. So, hello, thank you, and welcome. Did I time that really well, Adam?
That was great. So let's create a bit of like a context for the conversation. First 2 hours is not a lot of time. So if you're like, oh, this is going to be great, I'm going to totally resolve all of the issues I've ever had around money, it's all going to be sorted, we're sorry. This will be a call rife with disappointment for you. That being said, I think that there's a lot of value just in starting to shine light on something, to Bay's point, that we don't often look at. And the intention we have is kind of like to give, if we're all fish, to give us a sense of the fact that we're swimming in water. And ideally, we'd like to take a look at the specific water you yourself may be swimming in. We all have our own flavor of it. That's our relationship to money. So whatever Adam's relationship to money is, that's the water he swims in. You have your own. But even before we get to that level, we'd kind of want to just get to the point where we can all see like, oh crap, there is no objective truth. We're all kind of swimming in this water that we don't necessarily see, that has money and our relationship to it and stuff like that go a certain way for us. So that's like from the highest level, what we're hoping to create is a bit of altitude to start to see like, oh, wow, okay, there might be something at play here. I'm going to do up this button because I'm feeling a little bit like Russell Brand at this point in the conversation. No one called me out on that though, so I appreciate that. There we go.
They're all messaging each other privately about it.
Why is everyone typing so much? I don't understand. Cool. So we want to, one, kind of just get some shares so we can get a sense of like what's in the room with us, what kind of, how does it go, or, you know, whatever. And then we want to speak to just the overarching way that our beliefs create our reality, because that'll start to help us see like, oh, wow, the beliefs I have around money tend to create our reality. And then we're just going to work with whatever's in the room. So if there's people that are like, I've got this thing and I really want to address it, then maybe, hopefully we'll get a chance to work with that. Anything you want to add to that, Bay, that I haven't touched on?
Yeah, I want to sort of, all of what you said is awesome. And it's not like it's a just conversation. Like we're just going to do this thing. So our intention is that the conversation we have today is in fact absolutely essential if anything is ever going to change. Right. So you can, and like, I don't know, everyone on this call looks like they're more than 4 years old. So likely by this point, you have wished that your relationship with money were different. And you might not have even known that's what you were hoping for, but you wished that there was probably some more of it, I'm guessing. And so, like Adam's saying, you didn't even realize that you had this story or that you were in a relationship with a thing called money. And so nothing could change, or not very drastically and not very intentionally. And so even though 2 hours is not a lot of time, it is, nothing happens without this 2 hours.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of, there's a Jungian quote that is something to the effect of like, until we can make conscious that which is unconscious for us, it will forever impact our lives and we will call it fate. So while we can't see this stuff that we're intending to bring up out of the water, it sort of moves us around from the back of our heads. And we're like, I guess that's just the way it goes. I guess you can just charge what the market says is reasonable. Or I guess I just can't seem to get a job like that. Or, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but you have to lie, cheat, and steal to do it. And I'm not willing to do that. So I can't make a lot of money and blah, 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 blah. It becomes just the way the world is rather than something that we have power over.
Yeah.
That's a good Jungian quote, right, guys? No one really got excited or applauded or stood up and took their shirt off. I was like, yeah, okay, there we go. I think that's an amazing quote. Okay.
It is very good. And also, did you have it written down or was that just pure memory?
It's just pure memory.
Guys.
He might not have even said that.
I didn't say anything because it was like it was like mixing in with my stuff and resonating with me. It kind of rocked me. So I was just processing.
It's possible it's not even Jung. That might be like Abraham Lincoln or someone. What? Someone's just joined and their name is panel host. Let's let panel host in here. I'm excited. This person's going to run the conversation.
The panel host.
Okay. So, Bay, do you want to begin by just getting some shares? Oh, maybe I'm going to talk about partnership and leadership first.
Okay.
Just to put that in the space. So one thing Bay and I really believe in is transparency and leadership and partnership. And so you're going to see Bay and I checking in with each other. We don't have this figured out because that's what leadership is. If we already knew how this call was going to go, if we already had like a set curriculum or something that we were going to just implant into your brain, that would be doing something other than leading. And so if you're like, why do they keep asking each other that? Like, how disorganized is this? Or something along those lines. It's actually very intentional. So, Bay, let's get a few shares. Let's hear some of the conversation about money or what people are bringing.
I can do that. And it's also weird that you just asked me to do the thing you just spoke to. So if you'd like, you could just ask people.
No, I'm tired of hearing my voice.
Okay, great. I'll take over. So my assertion is that each of you has come here for a reason, like whether to be a voyeur or my relationship with money is fine, but I'd like to hear about all these other people and what they've got in the way. Like however you speak, obviously like that. So can we get a few shares from people maybe about what your what you thoughts, feelings, body sensations, concerns, when it comes to money, where are you at? Why are you here? And we'll do a hand raise situation, I think. Andrea.
There we go. Okay. So I think where I'm coming from right now with my relationship to money is I equate it to my success. So if I'm not making money, I don't necessarily feel successful. And yeah, I'm heavily weighted on that. Like I have to be earning in order to feel good.
Awesome.
And,
can anyone else relate?
I think
Sorry, no, you can keep going.
I was going to say my income kind of justifies my self-worth. Yeah. I find myself bringing up like if I'm working or making money at times, which I think is weird, but like I notice that I bring it up.
Right. Well, I have to like stop myself because I'm just like, ooh, hang on, let me just dive into there. No, Bay, focus. We are just taking shares right now. Thanks, Andrea. I saw a couple of like hands. Can anyone sort of relate to that? Like, oh, my income sort of indicates my self-worth. Like I can, yeah, right. That makes sense. Who else had their hand up? Loud and proud, people. Alton.
I typically use money to not have to deal with problems or to solve them. And I feel like I'm really insecure about like throwing money at problems to solve them. Or I use social favor. And then I feel like I can get almost anything I want through a number of conversations. But I don't have a lot of fluency between those, or like it's not a lot of liquidity between those.
Right. Interesting.
I feel compartmentalized or fragmented. This is like Silicon Valley venture capital type of interactions or context, mostly with other entrepreneurs.
Well, that makes a ton of sense in that context.
Compartmentalized.
Awesome. Thanks, Alton. Who else? Hands up. Josh.
Hello. I have two, one of which I think I just forgot as soon as you called on me. But
The skill I have.
yeah, just a. I was kidding. One was I'll have enough when, or I will be enough when, or the sort of if when context of
Mhm.
once I make enough money, then I will have this, or I will feel a certain way. And then, of course, when I get to that point, there's the next step of like, oh, well, then I'll have this, and then I'll have, and then I'll have, and then eventually I think you die at some point, and I'll probably still, when I'm dead, be reaching for the next thing as well. So that's one. The other one, see if the pressure brought it up to the surface. Was the like a little bit of ew around and either charging money or asking people for money, like a little stickiness around that, around charging a high price for things related to self-worth. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Josh. I can see it's so great. I don't even need to ask because as people are sharing, the room goes like this. So we'll just get like t-shirts with all these. It was such a nice shirt. I also saw Rob's hand up.
And Elliot's digitally raised his hand. Bonus for that.
Oh, cool. I can't see it, but we'll go to him next.
It's tricky because, like, to what Adam was talking about, it's being in the water, not fully seeing it. But I know that for me, there's some pervasive element of money being a very finite and tangible and transactional game, which leads to things like feeling like I'm taking money from someone, or that, like, to make a lot of money, you have to be good at actually taking more money from people than you're putting value out into the world. So yeah, there's a lot around that I think somehow connects to it being a finite and tangible resource that's just getting handed around, and to get more means taking more from others.
Right. Gotcha.
So it's kind of like it's almost like the books have to be balanced at the end of the day. And if you have more, other people have less, some flavor, or if you have less, other people have more.
Yeah. Like somehow I like, for me to get more money, it means I'm somehow besting someone else in the equation and they're losing, you know? It's like almost like stock sales. If you make more money, it means someone else lost. Or, like with things like services, like coaching, it's like, oh, if I give you food, then you can decide the value. But with coaching, it's like, I'm not giving you something tangible. So the only way I can get money is by getting better at extracting money from you or something. So, yeah.
You can I can see how there'd be so many rabbit holes too, like as to like, and that makes me a bad person or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of guilt around money. Yeah.
Right. The way I hear that, which doesn't matter, but it's fun for me to say, and I can, is like, those versions of like fantasy where you can do magic, but all magic comes at a price. Like I can't think of a story off the top of my head, but there's like lots of like fables and things like that where, yeah, sure, you can do something awesome, but like that person over there is going to kick it. Or like a child, I don't know, like some terrible story. I'm going to stop myself before I lay them all out. And I always thought like, well, that's a shitty version of magic. I don't like that. Yeah, got it. Thanks, Rob. And then Elliot of the digital hand.
Yes, that is me. Lower that. Money isn't worth anything to me.
You specifically, or the world?
To me.
Got it.
Why would I earn it? Because why?
And let's just put that pen carefully back down on my desk where I wanted it to be. And what about, I'm just want to extend this belief out. Like, what about those people where money is worth something to them? What's your stand or opinion about those people?
I'm not like against them. I don't like, they're not bad for doing that. It's just not really worth anything to me. And
well,
like, doesn't have the worth.
Right. So, let me just check in.
They're not evil or anything, and therefore I would be an evil person for doing that. No, that's not it.
Right. Are they anything though, is what I'm curious. So I get that they're not evil, they're not bad, but is there any part of like, oh, well,
there's
they
like this
believe
small
in
narrative, like they are the boring people, but it's not very strong. It doesn't feel
awesome.
like a thing.
So I want to take a moment to thank you for putting that in the space, Elliot, and to honor you for sharing like the small narrative, because one of the things that gets in our way is that we're all really busy trying to be good, responsible people, with the exception of Evan, because he is, you can see he's cloaked in darkness. He's going on a different path. But the rest of us are trying to be like good, responsible, like good humans, leaders, blah, 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 blah. And so from that place, we have a vested interest in shutting out the parts of our beliefs that shine poorly on other people. We don't want to own them. We don't want to give them much credence. And what that does is it makes it harder for us to hold all of the impact of any particular belief that we have in the fullness of the light of day. So what Elliot did by giving voice to that small narrative, and I get it's not like that, it doesn't sound, Elliot, like that's like a dominating part of your belief about money, but like even just in giving that part a little bit of a voice, it gives us more of the fullness of the picture, and it lets us see the water that we're swimming in with a little more awareness, a little more consciousness.
Sure.
Thanks, man.
How many more shares do you want, Adam?
I say 3.
Okay, I've
Evan,
got Darren,
Darren.
and then Jessica. I just went in the order I saw them, guys. So Darren.
Hey guys, thanks so much for putting this on, man. Yeah, my relationship to money. So a bit of everything that's been shared, I think, so far. Some of the things that are nuanced, I think, to me, this idea of having an income ceiling as I look back at my journey, my career journey, and I've noticed that I've never quite got beyond a certain level, you know, so there's a bit of frustration, but I'm curious about what's really causing that, and I'd love to just burst through that. But I see that there's an idea that it requires hard work and more specifically sacrifice for other things that I value, like freedom, family, fun, you know, and I think it comes from witnessing my dad and, you know, seeing him kind of churn his business over the years and watching him leave, you know, and be away for a long time. And then for me, a similar pattern where, you know, I would be working for a company and feel that tension of, well, I don't really want to be here. I want to be with my family, but I need to show commitment to them in order to show that I'm responsible and go up a level of responsibility and that type of thing. So like a bit of a trying to find that balance or place on the continuum where it feels good for both sides. And then feeling some energy rising.
Thanks for giving yourself a breath.
Yeah. So there's definitely a place between my wife and I where she always seems to be pressing for more and kind of showing me areas where I need to be providing more. And it feels like unworthiness and, you know, inadequacy on my side. And I think that I've pushed away the need for money or the desire even for more money as kind of what I think Elliot was sharing. Like, it's money. It's like, who the fuck wants money? You know what I mean? Like, it's not important. Or we have each other. We have our kids, you know. And she's like, you know, how old are you? Grow up, you know. And I hear also my mom saying, money doesn't grow on trees. Like, there's never enough money. Why are you asking for more? You know, don't you know how much we're sacrificing? So there's a lot going on in there, you know? Yeah.
Thank you. If I'm quiet, I'm just writing, and I'm not very good at talking and writing at the same time.
Can you hear me?
Next I had Evan.
You can hear me well?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm aligning with the crappy weather we have today, and I'm jealous about Rob and Andrea's outdoor with their sunglasses. And that's the Evan you're going to get today. So, a couple of things from me. I have an internal tension or something weird between, like Andreas, I put a lot of my worth and success related to money. But on the other hand, I'm selfless. Like I did some of these tests with the DISC profile 12 motivators a year ago, where I discovered that I was selfless and like opposite of resourceful, which is won't help me really get money in because that's not my main driver. So that creates kind of an internal tension where I was like, I really want it, but I don't want, that's not what motivates me. So it's kind of a weird tension. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
You want it, but you don't want to want it, kind of.
I want it because I assume it's meaning I'm successful and I'm thriving and all that, but I don't need it or want it in like naturally. I'm not going to be driven by that. I'm not quite clear yet, but that's what I was finding out with these things. And the second thing is I put the money, like in coaching, for instance, someone will invest and I will put the results in front of that, trying to compare, is that worth the results? Like, so I'm always, even when I'm proposing, I'm always like, oh, will they get that worth of value, you know, from our work together? What does that mean? So it's really getting in my way in the enrolling process. Because I could think of it just as the way for them to just leap into something scary, just being more committed without regarding, you know, the end results. Don't know if that would help, but I put this comparison, it's in my mind all the time. And the last piece is I'm about to move back from the US to Europe. And I have this story that over there it's going to be even harder, like to charge high fees. It's really a story that I have in my mind when I talk with people in France. I'm like, I just compare to what you were saying at the beginning, like what the market is with most of the coaches, and like it's around 100 an hour, 150, 200 maybe. And so there's this story around, oh, it's going to be different than from in the US or even from this community or, you know, the community of people really charging high fees.
Got it.
That's it.
I've heard that from many people in Europe, especially France. Oh, you just can't do that here. Tell me more. Okay, last up, I've got Jess.
Hello. Yeah, I was also one of the people whose computer is bobbing up and down when everybody's sharing. I think mine's sort of a weird cycle between, yeah, Andrea and Rob of it measures my worth. There's a finite amount and I'm fine making money at a traditional job, like put X number of hours in, it's for somebody else. And then where things get hairy is typically with things that are sort of for my benefit, like art, coaching, things that have traditionally sort of subjective value is kind of where I tend to get self-conscious or feel like I'm taking away or asking too much, or so it's sort of this weird cycle of self-worth and finite resources all around. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've noticed a big, with inflow anyway, it's this sort of weird line between what a traditional job and not.
Like I could be an engineer and make tons of money, and that's cool because we pay engineers a lot of money, but if I'm an artist, I gotta starve because we literally call them starving artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one's pretty common. Totally get that.
And somehow, like with my own art, like money somehow cheapens it. Like there's this collective consciousness that if you are not suffering for your art or not, you know, if you're charging a lot of money, then you're selling out or you're taking away from this sort of intrinsic value of it.
Yeah. Regardless of the art, I think that's pretty, I mean, it's an archetype, right? The starving artist.
Yeah, like music, art, writing, creativity in general. Yeah.
Totally get that. I always think it's, I have worked with a lot of people who create art in lots of different ways, but specifically like I was gonna say arty art because that's how arty I am, but you know what I mean, arty art. Anyway, so it's the starving artist or the tortured artist, or like, you know, like you got to die and then suffer and then your art can be known. Is pretty common. We make jokes about it, and then I always think of Matisse, because Matisse did not have that story. Matisse didn't suffer for his art. He enjoyed a pretty good life and was actually quite successful at the same time. And so there were a lot of contemporaries around him, like Van Gogh didn't go well, but Matisse just had a completely different experience. And so what Adam and I are going to be talking about today is the water that Matisse and Van Gogh were swimming in from an art perspective. But we will go broader than art, because clearly I call it arty art and don't know that much about it. So now, because fair is fair, oh yeah, you guys, you can chat. So feel free to write comments in the sidebar. We will check these out as we're going, so that if you didn't get called on, please feel free to comment on the side. So fair is fair. So Adam and I are going to share our stories on money. You go first.
So the main story that it's changing as I work on it, but like the story I guess you could say I was inherited or grew into or was given, was that overall, you better work hard. If you're working hard, then that means you are getting ahead of the game. That's the way to win. And so consequently, that got attached with money. So in order to make a bunch of money, I've got to be working hard. And there's various iterations of hard, like working smart is another flavor of working hard. So I could get another degree and then work in a different thing, but it's actually still more of the like, there is more that you have to do if you want to get more money. There's some sort of, you have to put in more inputs to get more money. So you better work hard. And consequently, if you're not working hard and you've got a bunch of money, then you must have cheated somehow. You must have stolen it. You must have done something, you know, bad. You must be a person that's unscrupulous or without integrity or lucky. So those are kind of the outliers outside of my story and how they get brought into the story.
Cool. I have like a triad. We got like 2 hours, so I'll just use the whole time talking about my story about money. You're welcome, everyone.
You're going to feel great at the end of this call.
I hear you. This is going to be amazing. So, so I inherited mine as well, but then I also created it a little bit myself, which just, I think everybody does. So I would have inherited the story that there was not enough money. So if you guys are familiar with like Les Miserables, the musical, my family's story about money is like Eponine, which is like, there's love everywhere, but none for me. So I'll just like creepy look through the windows at the thing I want. So not enough money, grew up in a family with unemployment, single parent. By the age of 6 or 7, knew my mom couldn't pay the rent every single month. It's not what a 6 or 7-year-old should be thinking about, but it was in my space and it just stayed that way. So I'm pointing to that because it planted the seed of scarcity that is kind of like, Adam, I've done a lot of work on this, but it doesn't actually matter what is in my account or what my life looks like, because scarcity just sings its little song in the back. It's irrelevant to my actual circumstances. Now, on the flip side of that, even though there was not enough money, I always got everything I wanted. So weirdly, I have this really magical relationship with money where like, there's not enough, but just kidding. Here you go, like it'll work out. So I have this like little belief that's kind of like a Hail Mary. It kind of saves me from my scarcity story. And then, hang on, there's like a triad. The triad would be, so kind of like, I can't remember. Oh, Elliot. Money's not that important to me, even though it's taken up a lot of space. Or actually scarcity, the scarcity of money or the fear of it, the importance of money has taken up a lot of space in my brain, even though if I'm being really honest, it's not that important to me, but I do very much like what money lets me do. So I don't care that much about the number. I don't really ascribe a lot of my self-worth to the number, but I want lots of it so I can do all the things. That would be my version. Okay, we'll stop.
And there's probably another part there that's like, I don't care too much about the number and there's not enough, right?
Well, exactly. I was going to say, like, I don't care too much about the number unless I'm competing with someone or something, which I am all the time, right? So like, I'll use it as a place to be like, oh, but I could do better. But in fairness, I would do that with everything in my life. So yeah, it'd be a place where I fall short.
Yeah, and the other part I wanted to bring back in though, Bae, was to loop it back to what you said about the scarcity of money growing up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you don't care too much about it. There's not that much attention on the number, and it's just short of running out.
Yeah.
Like both of those are kind of true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether or not it actually fiscally is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd say we talk about like the idea of a context and how our beliefs create reality and all of that, and then we can start to look at, okay, cool. So if you ever spend any time with like a coach who is not particularly deep in their work and you distinguish something like this, they'll go, great, it's just a story, the end, which isn't the truth. And this is why. So what happens is that we have a set of beliefs that we came by honestly. All of you came by whatever your beliefs about money are because your parents gave you the best tools that they had. They didn't understand they weren't able to distinguish the water they swam in. And so it just gets like transmitted down the bloodline. We don't even know that we're doing it. It's just the way we be in the world. We have these beliefs. From our beliefs, we have a set of actions that we take that are consistent with those beliefs. So, for example, if I've got a belief that I've got to be working hard in order to make money, I am going to look to take the actions that will have me work hard and earn money. That's where my lens naturally goes to look. And then I choose into those things because that's what the belief tells me to do. Does this make sense to everyone? So if we have a set of beliefs, we don't tend to, if we're like, strangers are dangerous, the actions we take in the world are not to go and talk and hug a bunch of strangers. We act consistent with our beliefs. So that's the first step that happens. The second step is that from the actions that we take, we start to create a world around us that's consistent with those actions. So I'm naturally going to gravitate towards people that act and speak the same way I do about money. I'm going to naturally find myself in a career that's a reflection of work hard to get more money. Does this make sense how the action would create like that environment? And then the final step in this, the closing of the loop, is that the environment around you that gets created by your actions reinforces your beliefs. So if someone says, it's just a story, you can say, are you kidding? Look around me. Everyone here is working hard. I don't know anyone that just happened to have money except that guy over there because he stole. So even the exceptions to our rule get brought in and made consistent with our beliefs. So it becomes this really tight circle. Oh, look, Bae's drawn a diagram. Belief causes our actions cause evidence or the environment or the world around us, and the world around us provides evidence for the beliefs, and then it reinforces itself, it tightens itself. Does anyone have any questions about this, just this notion broadly speaking? Awesome. Bae, do you want to talk a little bit about like our stories and family of origin, or do you feel like we've got that?
I'll talk about it very briefly.
Cool.
So a few people have even pointed to it, I shared, right? So a lot of my story about money is the song of my people. And that can be inside the walls of your house growing up. It can be passed down generation by generation. Often it is. I mean, we literally have terms for people if the situation has changed. Or like, oh, that's a new money family. And we always say it like this, new money family. They're kind of shitty, a little bit, blah, blah, blah. Like we're just like jerky about it because we're actually just really jealous and wish we were a new money family, I think. But so like Adam said, you inherit it, whether or not you realize you've inherited it. And most of the time you won't realize that until something in the world bumps up against it. And so, I will point to one thing, which is that just because you inherited it does not actually mean you will then continue it exactly the same. And what I mean, I'm going to use an example of like, imagine a family where you've got like for parents, a doctor and a Supreme Court judge. If this is your parents, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking about you. And so like really driven, focused, very successful by almost anybody's definition. And then let's say they have like 3 kids, and one kid becomes like a astronaut, and another one finds the cure for, well, let's make it relevant, COVID, like very successful driven people, leading in their field and financially compensated to match that like importance and influence that they have. And then you have like that one kid, the black sheep, who just like can't get their shit together, right? Like, and they would they just don't feel like they can get it together. They're like gonna be an artist, and they're gonna, I don't know, go be in Hollywood, or they just can't seem to find their way. It's not that that black sheep didn't inherit the family story. It's that there was really only a couple of options for that story to play out. So you're either going to inherit it and be like, yes, I will care for you and call you my own, or you're going to you'll completely flip it and say like, no, that's not for me. I don't care about money. I don't want money. Money's not important. And so it's usually pretty black and white. So I feel like that's important to clarify.
Another way you could think of it is that we tend to become either we tend to take it on board, or to do the opposite of it. So we're like the mirror or the foil to the story that we got. So you're raised, money is really significant. You'll either be like, money is really significant, or you'll go to the other end of the spectrum and be like, money is meaningless and has no whatever. And the truth is that they're actually part of the same belief. So if someone, I'll make it even simpler. If someone was raised with the belief that like there are certain things to do that are wrong, and then they're like, I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to put all my attention on that which is right. It's actually all part of the same water, which is that there are wrong things and right things. They look kind of different on the surface, but do you guys get this idea? Like they're 2 poles of the same magnet.
They're different sides of a coin. It's one coin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like Jeff's comment. I've done that in a single lifetime. I feel like I've sometimes done it in a week, right? Yeah.
So this is a little bit where we tend to get messed up, because we have this cycle, this belief into actions, into environment, which creates like an overall experience of life. And when we get tired of, you can think of it like we've got this box, which we'll call like your belief about money, the way that money is for you. And we hang out up here in this corner. And we're like, this sucks. I'm tired of doing this. I'm going to go and do the opposite. I'm going to start making money not significant at all, or I'm unwilling to struggle to make money ever again. And it's that we hope that we're going to create a breakthrough in terms of the way money goes for us, but actually we're just running away. We're moving to the other corner of the same box. So things can't really be any different. They look a little different on the surface, but underneath that, you're still in the same aquarium. Any questions before we move on?
Are you guys clear on like what we're saying is a context? How this shows up? And do you guys get, like, we're talking about context with regards to money, but you can have it about literally everything, and you do?
Yeah.
Cool.
So part of the catch here is this, thanks, Sophia, is this belief that, or maybe it's not even a belief, but like what happens initially when we start to see our box, we're like, oh, I need to get to the right box. This box I'm in sucks. I want to get rid of that one and get the correct box. There is no correct box. Every belief, every story you could create around money, around strangers, around the haircut that I have or that you have or whatever, is inherently limiting by definition. Another way that this has been said by people wiser than I is that the truth believed is a lie. As soon as you buy into a truth, you've kind of blinded yourself to something. And so then the next place people try to go to is, great, I'll have no belief whatsoever. But that's not how your brain works. Our brain is a meaning-making machine. So what we have to kind of do is accept our limitations and be like, okay, beliefs are inherently limiting. There's no right one, as much as I want to figure that out. And I can't just not have any belief whatsoever. So then the question that we really want to work with is the belief that I am operating with one that empowers me to create what I'm trying to create? does this box that I've currently drawn create the life, create the experience, create the money or the abundance or the whatever that I'm committed to creating in my life? If so, great, hang out there. If not, then maybe it's time for a new aquarium, a new belief to be operating in. Everyone clear? There's no right belief. We're unfortunately not going to be able to give you like the golden super belief that fixes everything with money. I'm disappointed too. Okay, Bay,
Well,
anything you want to, oh, who's, yes, Josh.
What if you've gotten, like I have one of those really good like contexts, or to use the accomplishment coaching language, the survival mechanism that's really sneaky. What if you've gotten really good at living in your context where you can just sort of meander and do exactly what you just said, be successful, accomplish all the things you want to accomplish, but be left with this sort of like unsatisfactory taste in your mouth?
Great question. Bay, you or me?
You go.
Okay. So I love that you brought that forward, Josh, because that's what we all do. So our belief makes certain things possible and certain things not possible. I'll use like one of the things I see lawyers in as, because that's my background. So like lawyers often are in this conversation. This is scales that I'm holding scales here. And the conversation is, okay, either, let's see, scales weighted down. So either I can have the money and the repute and the prestige that I crave, or I can accept cases that are like important to me and that feel good in my soul and that make my heart feel like I'm really making a difference on this planet. And that's they've got it, that's their box, is that you get one or you get the other. And we could even see like in some of these beliefs that you guys listed, like we've got, Alton said like I can have social favor or I can have money, but they don't tend to sort of be together. It's one or the other. So often we have these sort of trade-offs. And what we busy our lives doing is like, what's the optimal configuration of this scale? So sometimes what people will do is they're like, okay, I'm gonna put 20 years of my life into making a ton of money. Then I can do this with the scale and really do the stuff that makes a difference to me. Or they go, okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to accept that I won't make a lot of money doing what I want to do, but at least my heart feels good. And I'm going to kind of like come to terms with that. Or a third configuration sometimes people do is, I will work at the government where I get somewhat good hours.
Why do you have to make fun of me? Why do you have to make fun of me?
I will get somewhat good hours. I'll get more work-life balance. I'll get some money. I'll get to work on some prestige and repute. Just kind of like the halfway positioning. And the thing is that all of this is still on the scales. So at best, you're always playing this kind of balancing game, which is a little bit what you're describing, Josh, is like, okay, what's the optimal configuration of the stuff in my life, given that this is the way it must be? Does it make sense? Am I answering your question at all, Josh? I'm trying to interpret the look on your face.
It sounds like you're framing an answer that's coming, but I didn't, or maybe
Let me take a try.
Bay's going to fix what I just did.
Not at all. So kind of what I hear is like, well, what if I have a sneaky survival mechanism that is like worked all of the kinks out and it works in my favor, but I know, but I'm aware of it and I know that oh God, anytime everyone moves, and then I got to find Josh, there you go. But I know that I know enough to know that it's my survival mechanism. Do I have the story pretty accurately? Okay. So, I mean, honestly, that's fine. There are a few people I could name, but I won't, that we all know and would probably love to just talk about for a while, but we won't, right? Like there are people we know for whom it works and they seem okay with that. Unless you're not. So you hear stories of, for example, I've moved on to the Avengers series in my pandemic watching, so I'll just use Tony Stark as an example. Do you know who Iron Man is? So there's an example, right, of someone who he was fine. His survival mechanism worked really, really well, yeah? Am I going down the right path, Josh? Worked super duper well. He thought he was doing a good thing because he hadn't really questioned what he was doing because he'd inherited the business from his dad and they were doing whatever they were doing. But then he saw it like right in front of his face and he didn't much like what he saw. Didn't realize the impact of what his success was costing the world, right? Now it would have been fine if he was if he was a villain, then he could have just continued on his way and we just wouldn't have Iron Man movies, or they'd be very different. But he wasn't okay with it. And so then things needed to change. So like if the question is like, well, what do you do if? And it's like, well, if you're okay with the discomfort of it, or if you're, God bless you, completely oblivious to it, then carry on, my wayward son, right? I would have thought I was going to sing that for you, but I'll just say it instead. But if not, then it might be like, well, then you got to do the uncomfortable work of looking at it and shifting it up. Your survival mechanism doesn't operate as an entity separate from you. It's related to your essence anyway. And so there's actually work that can be done to come back to the light. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, are we answering your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I guess part of my question was also this worry of, like, it came up when Adam was talking about the two boxes, or like picking a new context and just sort of jumping from one to the other. For me, though, that feels like I'm just using that as a means of trying to balance the scales. Like, let me use this context a little bit and use this context a little bit, and just see, and there's this, like, and my brain explodes, and then, so it's kind of like, there's a question of like, what's an alternative? Like, if I'm playing that game, what's a different game to play?
Yeah, so it's a bit the trap of the ego. Like, the ego's job is to build this box, put you inside of it, and then the way its job is to keep you in there, because this is safe. Your current belief, the water you swim in is the world you know, and it's safe and understandable. And one of the best ways the ego keeps you in that box is it goes, oh, as soon as you've got like a new possible belief or something, it takes it and finds a way to stick it back in this box. She's like, oh, cool, I'm getting out. I've created something new. And then you're right back where you are. The trouble is, it's going to do that anyhow. And trying to like outsmart your ego is a little bit crazy making. So I would almost say, like, you don't have to think so hard about it or worry about it. It's more like, all we're trying to do right now is not even necessarily get you guys out of any particular box, just have you see it. That's all there really is to do. If we can start to see that we're in that box over and over and over again, then things can start to shift, because now we're conscious of what's dictating our choices. And if we get really conscious to it, then over time, we might start to choose something different, or might go, I'm fed up of this. It's not giving me what I want. Or, oh, look, I'm doing that same thing again. Maybe I'll try something different. Make sense? Cool. Yeah, Jeff.
You're muted.
You're muted. Nice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I have a sense of kind of like a straw man of my box, but I don't know that I'm really, because what you just said really struck me is you're here to help us clear on the box. So, or in this case, around money. So I'd like to become more clear about the box.
Great. Let's work with
so
your
hang
box.
on, I'm going to clarify. First of all, the thing we are most interested in accomplishing today is that you all get clear that you're in a box. Conveniently, we're on Zoom. So there you go. High five, right? Like, oh, I have a story about money. And it's not the story about money. Universally, it is my story about money. That if we could accomplish that today, then we will call it a day well spent. Mm-hmm. Now, if we can also help you to start to clarify, like, and this story box looks like this, and my specific story box could be titled this, then that's awesome. So I just want to clarify, there's like two separate things happening.
Got it.
Okay. Well, shall we just
Yeah.
look at Jeff's box a little bit? Jeff, let's look at your box. Let's get that box on the table. So,
Here, let me get it.
so what is the belief about money?
So some of the threads I wrote down. So definitely discretion around money. We don't talk about it in the same vein as we don't talk about who we voted for in the last election. I remember very clearly as a kid asking my dad, what did you spend on that car? And he said, we don't talk about that. So there's definitely something there.
And why don't we talk about it? What's the thing behind that?
It's a personal thing. It's a private matter.
Okay. So I just want to point to something. Private matter. So as we look at various boxes, one, look for yourself. And two, notice that there's what Jeff is describing first is the actions he takes with money. Right? The action is don't talk about it. That's a non-action, which is the same as an action, right? So what's something you do? And so we're kind of looking now, the question I'm asking him is drawing him back to what is the belief that causes that action, which is money is a private matter. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
The other is element of scarcity, that it's going to run out.
Okay. Full stop.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
I really resonated with what Darren said about a disconnect with his wife. That really resonated. And a thought that I have is I would love to be giving more, but she won't go for that. She's much more conservative around money than even I am. So that there's an element of that too.
Got it. So it's going to run out. And then I'm hearing like a little bit of the dynamic that exists between you and your partner.
Yeah.
Great. So I want to talk just a little bit about that dynamic too, which is that we tend to find a mate who shares a similar, like they have the same relationship to money that we do, or that they have the other side of the same box. So you'll end up with someone who's like, money is super significant. And then you'll find yourself a mate that's like, money means nothing at all and it's all made up. And then you get to be in this kind of dance together because it's actually the same box, just two ends of the same part. Does it make sense for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So it's a private matter. It's going to run out. Don't talk about it. Any other beliefs that you can see, like as far as money's concerned?
There's definitely something around value. My connection, my value, and not having a clear connection between what I charge and my personal worth. There's something there. I'm not doing a good job articulating it, but there's definitely something there.
Well, what is it? Like, is it money, the amount you charge is the reflection of your value, or like what's the, if we were to create this as like a rule or a, something on a, I don't know why I thought of fortune cookie, but like something that where it's stated as such, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think I've resonated with what, I know I'm not answering specifically your question, but what Evan said about, okay, does the result match, does it match the money? So I have to show up to the degree in which I, to the level of the price that I'm charging for whatever it is.
Great. So can you guys see and hear in Jeff's share that, like, just on that last one, there's kind of like on the scales is like the amount of money he can bring in versus the amount of value he provides out. And so he could kind of like, he can balance them out, but if he wants to make a lot of money, then he's got to, I'm guessing, have less spare time. He's got to like whatever value equates to for Jeff, there's some way that he's going to make sure that this equation balances out. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, and I'll share something just showed up for me. So I've even found resistance to getting clients because I am charging at a certain level in my business, and that's a lot of pressure. Like I don't want to take that on.
Right. So that's brilliant. Everyone, I want you to hear the brilliance in this, because this is not the brilliance that we normally think about when we say brilliance, but like basically we're in an unwinnable game. We're like, frig, I've got these scales. I want to make a bunch of money. Most of us do, because money allows us to do good in the world or evil, your choice. But if you want to do good, the more money you can be a conduit for, the more you can put into the world. So we're like, I want that, but it comes at a trade-off. So we have this equation that we're trying to balance, and then we create these strategies to work it out. So one of the ones Jeff's got is like, man, I want to charge a bunch, but then if I do, I'm going to have to sacrifice what? What would you have to sacrifice to provide enough value, Jeff? Gut shot.
Just energy. Just
great.
Like I have to work hard.
Great. So what would that be, like time as well? It cost you more time?
Yeah, it could be time, but it doesn't feel like time. You know, it feels more like, energy, thinking, capacity, just
got it.
Really having to show up and, man, I have to perform.
Right. So it's like you may be working the same number of hours, but at the end of the day, you're just going to be drained. It's just not a lot of vitality left.
Yeah.
Great. Can anyone else relate to this flavor?
Awesome. There's a bunch of bobbleheads happening this whole conversation.
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. And if you can't, that's fine too, right? Because your story about money, your water that you swim in may be different from Jeff's. So a couple things. One, if any of you are entrepreneurs, and I think a bunch of you are, you've probably noticed that this story becomes more pronounced as you shift from a corporate position into one of entrepreneurship. In corporate, we can kind of we are firewalled a little bit from our beliefs, because it's like, well, they're charging that rate. They're paying me the money that I get paid for my job based on I can handle that, but then they go out and do whatever, and I don't have to be so close to it. Whereas once you come to be an entrepreneur, there's no more firewall. It's you asking for your value in the world or doing your best to keep your equations balanced so that blah, 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 blah. So one of the things that's fascinating about this is from the coaching perspective, often we'll have a client come to us and say, I want way more money because valid reasons. And then what they'll do, actually, let's hear from someone. How, if Jeff came and was going to create more money, what could we expect to see also show up in his life? And someone has to put up their hand, and then you're going to tell me. And it can't be you, Jeff. Yeah, Corey.
Off the top of my head, maybe more stress or more pressure, or because he's going to have to perform to justify what he's asking for.
Beautiful. Can you guys see that? So it's like someone could help Jeff just to create more money in his life, but it's going to come at this cost. And he's only going to be willing to pay that cost for so long before he's like, screw this, it's not worth it. Which is the point where we go, okay, we start to bargain. How do I be okay with not having that much money? Maybe I can find ways to be happy with having a medium amount of money. Maybe I can create stories like, well, you know what? Having a medium amount of money is noble or whatever. So we start to bargain and find ways to be satisfied inside of the limited box that we're playing in. And I want to be super clear that this is not a bad thing. It's an entirely human thing. This is our human nature is to do this. It's just that, again, I would assert that what Jeff really wants is an abundance of money so he can do good in the world, because I know he's a man committed to that, and an abundance of vitality and energy, and to leave his days finished feeling more sourced rather than less than he started them. Bae, would you like to, anything you want to add, or do you want me to wind down the Jeff and you can work with the next person?
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. What are you seeing in this, Jeff?
I'm definitely seeing my box more clearly. So thank you. Yeah, I think just that. I would just say, just being more clear after those 5 minutes is very helpful. Just to, okay, I get, and like you often say, or must always say, is to be in choice, just choose. I get to choose, okay, what do I do next? How do I want to be in this box?
Yeah. The human tendency is, as soon as we see the box, we're like, great, let's fix it. Let's solve this box. And the fix will almost always be running to the other side. And so part of what the best thing you guys, all of us, and I've mostly forgotten you guys are here, and I'm just reminding myself of this now, is to be willing to just sit and notice the truth. Sit and be with it for a while. So we're like, oh, wow, look, I'm doing that thing. Here I am saying, like, turning down a client or selling. Like, there's a bunch of stuff we could imagine Jeff might do. Like, when he's talking to a client, he goes out of his way to prove his value. Would that be fair, Jeff?
Sometimes. Yep.
Yeah. And so we can just start to notice, like, oh, wow, this is one of those actions I take from my belief. And from that action, probably if Jeff got hired, that client is going to be like, all right, monkey, dance for me. Show me all that value that you promised me. You said that I was going to get a ton of value. Let's have it happen. And then so Jeff is going to try to show it from that place. And you can see it just sort of tightens up. So instead, what we want to do is just be in the practice of like, that's another one of those actions that draws me into this circle further. Okay, cool. Just going to notice that. Cool. Good for me to leave you there, Jeff.
Yep.
Great. Oh, and you got to jump too. That's perfect.
Amazing timing.
Anyone have any questions about that before Bay works with someone else?
Or see something for yourself, like did anything resonate? And want to share with us any of that.
I'll just say I love the whole thing was great, but the phrase draws me into the circle is the nugget that I'm going, and I'm now putting it on a Post-it note, the thing. It's just a great nugget to carry with me that encapsulates everything that you said.
Nice. Thanks for getting a nugget there.
I'll share something too. This is actually something Wes referenced with me. For a long time, I probably still do this sometimes. I would live in what we called the swamp. And the swamp was this sort of circular thing of like, in terms of context, you had outside the swamp, like there's a bunch of stuff and there's like other possibilities, but like I'm in the swamp, just sort of like, I don't know, just sort of like slowly sinking or coming up for air every so often and going back down and just in this circle of like, woe is me.
How do I make this swamp nicer? Maybe I'll get some swamp-proof chairs. Okay, now the swamp's not so bad. Maybe I'll plant some, this is what we all do, is we make best with what we have because we can't see the limitations that these walls are kind of invisible. So that's what we're doing, is we're pulling it up out of the water so we can start to, oh crap, I've created some walls. Okay, I'm gonna let you do some magic, Bay, and I'm gonna run to the bathroom and be right back while you're doing that.
Okay, sure.
Great. That's captured on the recording too, so that's going to live
everyone,
for perpetuity.
Adam's gonna go pee now. Who else has a question or like a here's where I'm stuck with my story or this idea that we're talking about? Also known as who would like to work on something right now with like related to this conversation.
I'm confused. After you just be with the thing, how long do you wait until? How do you know when it's gone? Because it's self-sealing.
Like, you mean how long do you just sit there and be like, okay, great, like this is the box. Is that what you mean? Like, how long do I just sit with it?
I felt very resonant. My reflexive compulsion is to jump to the opposite side of the thing. And I'm like, great, I'm broadening my dynamic range. I'm doing a thing, I'm solving it.
Yeah.
And I could sit with it. I'm like, okay, and then what? And then I'm going to be blindsided by the same problem tomorrow.
Yeah, so partly it's just noticing that that's likely to happen, period. Like as long as you're being a human, I imagine, until you have other plans. But there's an idea that we can look at a context as something that could be bankrupted. So consider that you're going to keep doing what you do, whether it's the thing you do or the opposite, which is kind of what I heard you say. Is that accurate? Like, I'll keep doing my thing. I'll sit in this rut till I realize I'm in a rut, and then I'll like do the thing I do, which is like a backflip. But that's another rut.
Yes. Or sitting with it is unclear how long, or like, what am I?
Yeah, literally all
What's
of
the
time.
Success criteria.
Right. So only you get to say. And so the idea, like when I said bankrupting it, is like there will come a point where you're no longer going to get cookies for it anymore. That's like a dog owner comment, so it may not make sense.
Like feeding the wolves. Stop
yeah,
feeding the
like,
wolves that aren't serving you, or keep biting.
Exactly. Right. But actually, sometimes like feeding, so you know the wolf story, light wolf, dark wolf? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So we can get an awful lot out of feeding the dark wolf. It can serve all manner of needs and desires. So sitting with it is partly just an invitation. It's kind of like, how long do you sit in meditation if you have to scratch your nose, right? Like, how long do you do that? I don't know. Like, I really don't know the answer. Genuinely, someone tell me, right? So it's partly just getting to that point until you realize, like, I am tired of doing this one thing or the other predictable thing. I'm tired of moving the furniture around this room. I would like to leave this room. And how long that takes is going to be different for every person, depending especially on how comfortably you have furnished that room. If it's comfortable, you will sit for a very long time.
So you said the mental move is to bankrupt it? I don't know what that.
So what I mean by that is, like, eventually, like, imagine you're sitting in the room you're in right now. Is it pretty comfortable? It's all airbrushed. It looks lovely. This is a great example because we're all friggin' locked into rooms right now, right? Anybody going stir crazy in the space that you've been inhabiting for the last 12 weeks? Alton's like, I don't know, my room's really
Thankfully,
great.
it's a community house, so I feel really good about it.
Gotcha. But are there things you'd like to do outside of it? Ever?
My paradise. So I'm actually really frustrated that more people haven't discovered this sooner. I'm like, guys, catch up.
Okay, so I used a bad example, but everyone else is nodding. So everyone else is getting something from that. So consider that, you might be just fine with the story that you've got, with the context that you've got. You don't need to change it for the sake of changing it. You only need to change it if you want something different than it is currently affording you. So bankrupting it, you could do that for fun, but I don't know that it would be that impactful. It's really about whether, like, when you realize, like, shit, I am stuck in this room and I keep feeling very accomplished because I've, like, moved my bed to this side and I've, like, painted I've got a feature wall now, like, and you realize that, like, it looks great and I'm yearning for something other than what this gives me, regardless of how I decorate it. And until you get to that point, there's nothing to do.
Can I add something to this, Bay?
Yeah.
We have the beliefs we have because they provide us something. So Bay said that briefly, but it's really important. Then we get that. There's a Zen saying that you can't leave a place until you've been there. And what we do as humans is we try to leave a place without being there, which is to say, we don't really sit in the box and get the entirety of it. We're like, this box sucks, I want out. And then we try to run away from it. So what we have to do with our beliefs is really get, like, oh, wow, there's payoffs as much as there are consequences. Inside of your story, your beliefs, there's some things that are possible and some things that are not possible. Even like
Gets you something and gets you out of something.
That's right. Yeah. So like Elliot's belief that money has no meaning to him would provide some things, and it's also going to get in the way of some things, like possibly some things that require a great deal of money, or if not that, then something else. And we know the truth of that because every belief is inherently limiting by definition. And so what there really is to do is to just to sit in it and, like, oh, what am I getting out of this? Oh, what is this making impossible? And as you start to sit in that longer and longer, you're either going to be like, hey, I feel great here, or you're going to start to feel more and more the desire to create something beyond this and start to notice, oh, this belief sucks. Now, the follow-up question, I imagine behind your question, Alton, is like, got it. But now that I've bankrupted that, how do I change it? Which is a different conversation, because we can only do so much in 2 hours. So we're really hoping to just get you to the point, all of you, that you can start to be like, oh shit, there's a box. I didn't realize I had a box, and I'm starting to see it, and to start to sit in it. And if all of us started to do that a little bit more, we're becoming more conscious. We're becoming more clear on what it is that's actually dictating our actions. And that alone will start to have an impact. It'll have us take those same actions, but with way more clarity. And that will start to make a difference. Because we're humans, we want the difference to be made yesterday and want to like have all the answers. We got to be where we are first. Back to you, Bay.
Does that answer your question, Alton?
I need this pain to soak in more deeply for the pleasure of this to saturate and indulge me until I can choose to let it go or really just actually be with it. Or I can live a life of mediocrity forever and rationalize my actions.
All are
And it might
viable
not even be
opportunities.
mediocre.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Hi.
Any questions? Oh, I heard a voice.
Anatoly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hello.
Hi, guys. I have a question. I have a pretty addictive personality, not when it comes to substances, but definitely when it comes to doing activities and, certain people, relationships, and I guess like staying in the same room of an activity. Like when I find something or someone I really like, I just sort of fully invest myself into it, and everything else in my life kind of like falls out of it. And I think that there definitely is like a beneficial component to it. Like I can really get deeply into a subject or a person, but I never seem to know like when is the right time to leave the room. Like when is something tapped out and I need to step out.
Can you make that real for us in terms of this conversation around money? Can you give me
Sure.
an
So I've definitely had a pattern of sticking to jobs or business ideas for much longer than I should. It starts out as a really good business idea, and I start doing it, and eventually it hits a point where the idea is kind of tapped out, where I can no longer where I'm no longer productive. Like I am not generating anything useful out of it. But it's really hard for me to like yank myself out of that situation and move on to the next one. And it's really hard to know like when I should like exit that situation.
Well, Bay, I would just look at the beliefs
right
behind that.
So in terms of, there's kind of two, right? Like one, what keeps you there? Going. And it sounds like past sunk cost point, like longer than I'm hearing, longer than you in this current conversation in this moment today would like to.
I think the main thought that goes through my head is if I stick with this long enough, will it actually work out? Like, am I giving up too soon?
Right. And so is somebody,
I'm curious if he, because he feels that he's like
I'm going to mute
he's
Caitlin
kind
in
of
one sec. I
outstaying
just have to
his
find her here.
I just wanted to ask a question. I didn't know that
No,
that wasn't.
that's okay. What's
we
what's
want
your
a question, but just, yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. I was curious as to, because he kind of feels as though it sounds like that he spends his welcome, or at least doesn't transition properly. What does he feel the cost of this is? Does he feel that his relationship with the person is taxed, that his experience with that moment is taxed? What does he feel that he's missing out on by doing this?
Okay, great. Anatoly, did you want to take, I saw you nodding. You also look very like witness protection-y program. I'd love to see your face if you could turn to the light, but it's also okay if you want to be witness protection. Is he frozen? Am I frozen?
It looks like Anatoly might be frozen.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. That's fine. Yeah, it looks like Tully's frozen.
Okay, great.
Okay. Go ahead, Adam.
Okay, got it. So let me lay context for everyone else, because it's a little bit, it sounds like it's a little bit off, but I think that there's going to be some connectivity. So what I'm hearing, Anatoly, is that you basically have this tendency you're distinguishing, which is you tend to stay longer than you feel is good. Is that right? Got it. And so I think I'm hearing that when it comes to like that would play out as well in situations where you've invested something or stuff like that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what's the story there? Like, what's the belief that has you stick around?
The belief is if I stick around longer, if I invest a little bit more, like, can this work out? It's really hard for me to see that point where, you know, is this a sunk cost, or is this something I keep working on because it's, you know, close to being successful?
Got it. And what's the story about leaving? Like, what would it mean about you if you left?
It would mean I am giving up too soon, possibly.
Got it. I'm giving up too soon. And what kind of people, or what's the story about giving up too soon?
Well, quitters never win and winners never quit.
I love that that's even like
Thanks,
a motto.
Dad.
Quitters never win and winners never quit. Can anyone relate to that particular story of quitters never win, winners never quit? Great. So just to give everyone the context here, or at least the context for the conversation I'm in with Anatoly, we started with the actions, right? One of the actions Anatoly is clear he takes is, oh man, I stick around forever or for longer than I feel, or it's like hard for me, I might have this sense or whatever. And so we're just going back and looking at the belief. It's not as directly related to money as some of the stuff that everyone else has brought, but nevertheless, it's still going to be a box. And the way we be in one place in our life is the way that we be in every place in our life.
Well, and I imagine it both could be and is. I imagine there are times that Anatoly has continued to pour good money after bad, or would tell us that he has done that, whether it was money or his time.
So Anatoly, what do you do from, like, what are the actions you take from the belief that quitters never win and winners never quit?
Well, the actions are, you know, doubting my gut instinct that, you know, this is kind of tapped out and that I need to move on. And yeah, it's definitely a very strong belief that, you know, if I quit something, that means, you know, I guess I'm some sort of failure. I'm some sort of, like, I don't have the discipline. I don't have the, yeah, I guess the discipline.
Yeah, great. So you judge yourself heavily when you quit?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of judgment that comes around quitting.
Great. Okay. And when you have to quit, so guys, all I'm doing is exploring the fish tank, just getting curious about the content of it. So when you quit, given this story that means you're not going to win and it's bad and all of this stuff, what does quitting look like when you actually do it? How does that play out?
Well, generally I'm forced to quit. Either I'm fired or I have bipolar, so I tend to go into a really deep depression. And at that point, I'm literally not able to work or do anything else. So
great,
like in that way.
So it's kind of like you're in if we want to talk a little spiritual, I am not a doctor, so everything I'm going to say has zero worth medically speaking. But like spiritually speaking, we can almost say like, it's like you are holding on. There's a part of you that's like, dude, quit. And then what happens is some energetics, some part of your body, your system, your spirit, your whatever you want to call it, is like shutting down. We're quitting. We can't keep fighting with this. We're getting this done. And then you have no choice but to quit. Does that sound somewhat accurate? I know I'm getting a little wooey, but I think we can hang out there together.
Yeah, I do totally believe that's what's happening.
Great. So given that we're starting to look at the box with you here, what do you see you might keep an eye out for over the next couple of weeks as you go about your life?
Definitely like investing into some idea a little bit too much, but also keeping a balance between, well, not investing enough into an idea, because the opposite, like a lot of times after a depression, I'm like, all right, you know, I just went through this whole period where I was so heavily invested into something, and look how horrible it ended. I was like catatonic for weeks. Like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. And then I make the opposite mistake, like I overcorrect and say, all right, I'm going to bounce from this thing to that thing to that thing to that thing. And well,
right,
that also is problematic.
Yeah, so there's like this new place in the box that you were hanging out here, which is like, if you say yes to something, you say yes to it forever. Plus, it's like a Scientology agreement. You commit the next million lifetimes to whatever you've said you're going to do. And then that doesn't go so well. So then the new place you go is like, okay, given that if I say yes, I can't quit, I can't get out, I'm going to sort of stay a little more surfacey or bounce around or butterfly around or whatever. Fair?
Exactly.
Great. So all I would have you do, Anatoly, is notice this happening. Notice yourself, like notice when your gut is telling you, hey, it's time to quit, and you're letting that belief show up and be like, quitters never win. Quitters never win. You don't even have to do anything about it right now. You just have to notice, oh, my gut's telling me one thing, and that belief is dictating a different action, which is to stay in this for longer and longer and longer. And you might notice yourself when your gut is telling you, say yes to this, and you're like, basically your fear, right? Once bitten, twice shy, your fear's like, don't say yes to this. Don't say yes to this. Don't say yes to this. Would that provide you some insight, some ability to see the water you're currently swimming in?
Yeah, I think like checking in more frequently would definitely help. And yeah, it's still hard, you know, in practice, but
Totally.
Yeah.
It's the hardest, I would say. To see the water we swim in is so hard because we're trying to see the thing we see the world through. And so it's just so hard. We automatically fall into this state of not being able to see it and going about life as normal. So the rep, you know, like when you're at the gym lifting weights, the rep here is to notice this. And then you'll forget about it and you'll just be acting as normal and you'll be like, crap, I'm doing that thing again. That's another rep. So just keep doing the reps. And I can't make any guarantees as to what will happen, but I can promise you'll start to become more conscious of this whole thing. And as you become more conscious, the ability to choose differently becomes stronger for you.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It definitely seems like a skill that, you know, has been getting a little bit better over time. And, you know, I'm just kind of like rushing that skill to happen faster or develop.
Me too. I'm never
I'm a
satisfied
little
with
curious.
my progress.
Are most of these situations financial, or is it kind of a pattern, but it impacts you the most maybe financially, so it kind of glares out to you a little more?
Well, I mean, basically the two things that generally happen is I really get into a job or a business idea, or I really get into a person. And the outcome is always exactly the same. Everything else in my life just falls off. And I start, at first, you know, everything is going amazingly well. Like I am doing great work. Everyone is saying like, hey, you know, you're doing an amazing job programming this. I, you know, get raises, I get, you know, promotions, I get, you know, all this positive reinforcement. And same in a relationship, like, oh my God, I feel so happy in this relationship. I feel so amazing in this relationship. Like, this is, you know, the shit. But then there comes that like inflection point where everything starts to go down, and suddenly, you know, I'm not producing work, I'm not producing things. And whether it's the relationship or the business, like basically everything in my life falls apart. And that always has a financial consequence, because I generally like either get fired or have to go on medical leave. Essentially that's the financial.
I was about to ask you a question, but I feel like you already kind of answered it in part. When you feel like things in one facet of your life.
Well, Caitlin, we're actually I'm gonna pause you there. I really appreciate your curiosity, and I'm also present to Anatoly's, like the fact that he's sharing vulnerably, and that Bay and I want to make sure that we're maintaining our direction on this call. So thank you for asking what you've asked. And if you've got something in your own life that you'd like to bring forward, we'd love to hear that. And otherwise, I think Bay's got something else for Anatoly.
Okay, can I just ask the one that I was going to ask, because
we're going to get you to hold it.
We're going to let you hold it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so think for yourself if you have a question or something you'd like to share for you, so we can work with you as opposed to you having something for someone else.
Yeah.
Cool. Anatoly, do you have a little tiny bit of room left?
Sure.
Cool. So while I was listening, I noticed a few other places to look. And so this is sort of for everyone, because there's no right, like correct context. There's many of them. And there's often more than one at play. So some of what I heard is that there's a really strong sense of right, wrong. Like how long is it right to stay, and when is the right time to leave? Because the story that I'm hearing that you've got is like, traditionally, I stay past the point that I should have, and then like throw a Molotov cocktail into my world behind me as I walk across the bridge and be like, yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers, right? Like that, like it's kind of like, okay, that was a bit too long again, bit too long. Am I right, or getting warmer?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, it also sounds a little bit awesome, so I get it. So partly just getting like, hey, there's a bit of a context here, you guys, around the right wrongness of it. And what I really hear, Anatoly, is that you want someone to tell you what that is who is not you. And I really want to, like, with a ton of like, man, I super get it, you would have learned really well not to trust you.
Yeah.
Right. So thanks so much for like your incredible courageousness and generosity in sharing that you have bipolar. And I have worked with people who have bipolar, and I have some people in my family with it as well. And so what I get is it does become very difficult to know whether you can trust yourself, especially in a manic state or phase, because it all seems familiar, but it also seems like a really good idea.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I really like partly just want to be like, man, I just want to give you a big hug, because that's like super tough. And so part of it is like, what I would also have you look for would be that, right? Like they're like poker tells actually for you. Like on the one hand, it's harder, like the ante is upped for you because of bipolar. But on the other hand, you have this beautiful tell in that do you recognize when you're in the phases?
I'm starting to recognize it better.
Yeah. I mean,
as you rather, I'm developing a community which is telling me that I'm in a phase.
Great, which is awesome. Like it's not that there's one way to tell, it's that there likely are several. And one of them, like based on what you've shared, is like when things are going gangbusters, you probably can guess where you are. You're not at the bottom. And so it's not that in that case, and what I've seen with clients that I've worked with who also have bipolar is like, oh shit, then I have to stop this thing that I'm doing that's good because that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do because I don't trust myself. It's actually just part of it is recognizing like, oh, hang on, I'm in this part of the roller coaster ride again. I know it comes after this. Sometimes loop-de-loops are super fun if you are properly harnessed in, right? But it's really just like, oh, I'm here again. And then, like you said, which I totally acknowledge, the bravery of getting a community around you to share that with. Do you get that a lot of people don't do that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't do it for most of my life.
Super good reasons, right? So I really acknowledge that as a huge step. And so for part of it is actually like using those poker tells to then indicate like, hey, I might want to get some support from the people around me because I don't feel really trustworthy in myself for all these really good reasons. And then who knows, honestly, whether something's right or wrong, I think we generally decide after the fact and then make true. So, but really like for you to sort of capitalize or leverage these, because it's actually just amplified for you. Your contexts are louder. And so that's really where I would have you look at that place of like, oh shit, I'm in this right-wrong conversation. That's probably an indicator. Or like, oh, things are going really, really well. There's probably a fairly predictable point here where I'm gonna, like, I noticed that I'm taking a t-shirt and I'm putting it into a, it's weird that I know how people make Molotov cocktails, but I did used to be a police officer, right? Like noticing that you're collecting the ingredients to make it. And that's the point where it may not be changing something, but it might be drawing your, like recognizing that you're moving towards it sooner so that you can then check in either with yourself or with like your trusted community and network. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Who else in this room has a belief or context around money that they'd like to explore?
I'll play.
Elliot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I start where what I said before. Money has no worth to me.
Mm-hmm. So
if I ask myself the two questions you presented before,
yeah,
so
go
what's
for
keeping
it.
me in this belief, and then what's it preventing me from doing, or what am I getting from staying, and what should I do something different?
Well, there's no rules, so you can answer those if those feel like pressing for you.
Sure, why not? What's good about being here? I don't have to worry. I get an excuse to not care about a lot of things.
Totally.
And then what is limited is that I have a limit about how much I can plan for the future or growing wealth, because I've refused to worry about those things.
Right. Well, that makes sense. May I ask you, like if your family of origin had a motto about money, would it be similar to the one you've got, or would it be different?
I'm checking. I'm like different people in my family have different mottos. It's probably like I suspect I did pick that up from my upbringing, but then my brother picked a different motto.
So you would say that you inherited the like money doesn't matter?
Yes.
As opposed to money matters very much, so I'm reacting to that.
Yeah, I inherited.
Okay, gotcha. And so is this currently a problem for you in your world?
A bit, because I have this awkward relationship with money right now, where I'm not sure if I should do, if I shouldn't do, if I should just ignore it for a while and see if it goes away, or if I should be planning more strictly for my future. I'm just a bit lost and confused with the relationship to money.
Right. And what's the impact of that?
Are you asking for more concretes?
Sure.
That was the impact. I don't know how to factor money into my decisions. Do I charge money for my skills? Do I just give stuff away for free for a while? Do I focus on upskilling myself so that I can earn more money at a future time when I decide I want to? How do I'm at a point of indecision around what to do with my time, because I have this awkward relationship where I'm lost as to how to relate to it.
Yeah.
So concretely, I'm in this indecision.
You're in like a morass of indecision, right? Like it's across your business. I also heard a little bit like there might be like life choices that you could be making. There's sort of like is there like that cascade effect through your life or parts of it?
Yeah, let's go with yes.
Do you guys get, I'm gonna like point to a couple things live and in the moment. Thanks, Elliot. Do you guys get that his indecision about like how he feels about money is literally showing up in the conversation that I am having with him right now? Not a very clear yes or no answer to anything. Do you get that?
That's nifty.
Yeah, it's handy how we do anything. So, okay, now I'm back with you, Elliot.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I get is that your relationship with money gets you the glorious pain in the ass of indecision.
Okay.
Meaning that sometimes it's awesome to have no responsibilities. That's like Peter Pan, right? I literally have a quote from Peter Pan tattooed on my arm.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Like, right? So possibilities are endless.
You
could do anything. Someday. But how do you choose? Because it doesn't really matter. Or how do you know which one matters the most?
No, that's my question that I have to ask other people.
I know. Yeah, that's my point. Right? So so if we take your story about money and we look at how it's impacting you, like it's not just money, it's literally dictating your life and your future. Right? So we could often take the word money out, at least in this case, we take money out and just put my life.
Sure.
Yeah. And so really getting that, like, on the one hand, that's partially awesome. Like you said, there was like that little tiny bit of you that's like, I'm like a moderately better human being than those people who are really like, have their undies in a knot about money.
Yeah.
But you don't spend much time there because you're too busy over here being like, what the hell am I going to do? Who will tell me?
Or like, how do I decide? Sure.
Yeah. And so the tricky part is like, are you real? I noticed that you're more interested in how to decide than you are in like what. And that could just be because we've had too short of a conversation.
I'm interested in both. I'm assuming that the how will help me decide the what.
That is, just for the record, in my professional opinion,
could be wrong.
Putting a cart directly in front of a horse and then asking the horse to do something about that. The horse will in fact be like, oh, like, do you want me in the cart? I thought I was going to pull the cart, but if you like, I don't, right? Do you get the idea of a cart pulling?
Yeah, I get the idea.
Yeah. So sticking with how, if you haven't figured out what, is a great way to stay very, very still.
This points to like a hierarchical disorder of how I'm making decisions.
Well, sure, if you want to pathologize it and use disorder, it's getting serious.
Yeah, like not a mental disorder, but a disorderliness of.
Sure, I gotcha.
I'm prioritizing my something or other. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're great. You're doing your thing. It's helpful.
I'm looking at like, okay, what is that thing, and how do I go approach it and reorder it, or where did I put that disorder in?
Yeah.
That's a little bit too big to fill up in 2 sentences on the spot.
Which might be interesting. You've got like, all the rest of your life to figure that out if you like. But if we want to look instead at like, well, if you were to get really clear on one thing, what it is you want in your business, or where it is you'd like to live in the world. I don't know, like actual, specific, and tangible. Because what I'd like to reflect is that what I'm hearing about your relationship with decision making is kind of like money, which is like woo. And so the more specific you might be able to get, right, in one particular area, we might be able to arrange the cart horse scenario such that there could be any movement whatsoever.
Mm. I can see I get a bunch of benefit out of remaining in indecision, and it's been a good strategy for me for a long time to not decide and extend out the decision making for as long as possible to get more information, to modify the scenario, change the resources, all sorts of things.
Right. It's very smart.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Like I can see the strategy there, and then my sense is that money is more concrete than the strategy, and somehow concrete has to come before subtle.
Well, if we look at money the way you've got it, which is it's not that important, and the indecision that you're benefiting from, makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you were to get really clear on what you wanted and then figure out how to do it, you would be all set up to do something that might require some resources, some of which might be money, time. And all of a sudden, this thing that isn't very important to you might become more essential. So do you get like the actions in your life are protecting your relationship to money and vice versa?
Yeah, okay. Yep.
How's that feel?
Unremarkable.
Mm.
That in this moment, I'm sorry. Was that meant to be remarkable?
No, not at all.
And exciting and super cool and
no. No, so are you content with that to stay the same?
My sense is I'll have to sit with that and see how it lands properly, deeper, and see if it will naturally shift from just knowing that. But right now, it lands as nothing.
That makes sense if we were going with the belief as it pertains, which is, doesn't matter that much.
I'll sit with it and see.
Any questions? Anything you need or want?
Yeah, I might as well just quickly reflect. Feels like just laying out or mapping out some of the beliefs in the area, like CBT wise, laying them all out and then organizing them, the web of how they point together, just made it clear. That's it.
Cool.
Yes. Yep.
Well, thanks for playing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun.
I have a story that is like very similar to that, except for me, the cost is like intense, or I anticipate that the cost is intense.
Can you make it real, Sophia?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm intrigued, but I know nothing.
Okay, let's see. I am missing out on opportunities because I say that I'm going to sit on it and think about it, but then I completely dodge it and like forget about it.
Right.
Because,
like,
yeah, something
and
about
like boats and buses leave, and then you're like, but wait, I was going to maybe possibly get on one of them.
Yeah.
And what's your story about money? I don't think we got yours when we were. What's your belief?
I had written that there's something about obligation. There's definitely that sort of like, I have to like meet that standard. There's something about responsibility and like and for me, when I was younger, like money was used as like a threat. Like it was like you could take it, like they would take it away, or yeah, it was something in that realm.
Gotcha. So the action that you're identifying is that you like to wait and sit in indecision. The belief is that money might be taken away from, oh, my dog might bark. Oh, we're very lucky, all of you. The belief that it could be like it's like it could be taken away from you.
It's like something about like being held over my head.
Gotcha. Uh-huh. So how does being indecisive or slow to act, my word, not yours, relate to the belief?
So if I absolve myself from all responsibility, then I won't bear the brunt of how painful it is to be disappointed, or to feel the disappointment, or feel the disapproval of another person, especially if I care about them.
Right. I'm guessing that's not working out exactly like you'd like it to.
Not at all. I don't want it.
Right. Gotcha. So what's it currently costing you?
Money.
Uh-huh.
It cost me a lot of overwhelm and fear. I think for me, the like anticipation of the worst thing happening is like worse than the actual worst thing happening. So I feel like I'm constantly in this state of overwhelm. Like if I do this, oh, like it, yeah.
Got it. So this is kind of how anxiety works, right? I think it was Mark Twain who said something that I'm not going to probably say exactly right, which is like, I've had many concerns in my life, most of which never happened. Yeah. Like that's, anxiety is loud and overwhelming. It's kind of its thing. And so the indecision keeps you from disappointment, except it sounds like it's actually getting you disappointment and overwhelm at the same time.
It's like both. Yeah, it's like there's no winning here. Yeah, yeah. Pretty painful. I'm like clearly on my face trying to fly away from this.
This conversation or this story in your life.
All of it. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm out. Yeah. So first of all, I just want to normalize for you that it is often very uncomfortable to notice our context. There are 7.6 billion people on this planet, and like, I don't know how many people have been on this call, like 15. And that's like a good ratio for the number of people who have awareness of what we're talking about today, because it is honestly much easier not to. So I really want all of you to get, and Sophia, because I'm speaking to you right now, like, hey, this is courageous work, to be willing to be like, oh my God, I've made a reality and it turns out I don't like it. Shit. Now what do I do? Ugh, right? It's a lot easier when we can point at the world or someone, like a parent or something, for making stuff not work out for us. And it's a lot harder when we're like, oh my God, it was me. Oh God. So I really get it. What's something you want instead? I'm going to give you a heads up. We have like 2 minutes. So we're going to like get you, I don't know, somewhere 2 minutes from now. But that's all the time we have. But what's something you really want in your life? And it could be a thing. It could be an experience. It could be anything.
Fullness, love, alignment, and abundance.
Gotcha. And currently, if this was like decorated to look just like your story with your words, like your beliefs, the thing you do, like, is it clear that those things you just said you wanted are probably not that available here?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So, I wonder if you're clear. So is this like news to you? Like, oh my gosh, that's the box I've been in? Like, this is the belief that I've got? Or is this new today?
It doesn't feel new, like it
Yeah.
feels familiar.
Gotcha. Great. Okay, cool. So it's been creeping up and you've been noticing it for a little while.
Yeah.
And now we're doing the thing where we're like, aha, I see you and I shall give you a name. So then from this point, you might be in a place where you could spend some time thinking about all of those abundance, fullness, love. I think you said another, and I didn't write it down. I apologize, right? Like thinking of the things that you really do want to create and getting a bit more present to that, then focusing on the things you don't want, like fear, indecision, anxiety, and overwhelm.
Makes sense.
How to create those things, kind of like to refer to our friend Elliot, that comes actually later. But if you could spend time really focusing on what you want, and you, I imagine, I suspect, will get clearer and clearer that those things do not reside in the box of the current belief, action, and environment that you're set up in. What to do next might become a lot more clear.
Letting ourselves want for something inside of the box, there is a limited set of what we can have. And what we do as humans is we try to figure out the best life given what's inside of our box. So the simple act of you letting yourself want for something outside actually is outside of the pattern. That's actually a step you're taking that has you acting outside of your box. Now, it might be hard for a while because you're like, frig, I want that. I can't see how to get it. And you're going to feel a bit of heartbreak, which exists in the discrepancy between what you want and what you currently see or have. But in being willing to stand with that and to want for something outside of the current realm of possibilities is an action towards getting outside of the box.
So it feels like for me, I'm like getting closer to getting out of my box. But I guess I'm wondering, like, then is the next step, like, wanting it even more?
So I'm going to answer that question. Bae, I can feel you champing at that bit. You're just going to have to let me wind our call down because
No, I was going to say the same thing you're probably about to say. Yeah. So go ahead.
So first, I would invite you just to be in your box, to like just notice it. Frig, I'm in this stupid box. Oh my God. And in wanting for something that is not currently inside of the realm of what's possible, like I want that raise and I want to have it without any obligation over my head whatsoever. I want to feel juicy getting that raise. That's what I want. And I'm going to want for that. That simultaneously will shed light on the impossibility of it, which has you notice the box you're in, and it has you starting to dream and vision and want for things outside of that, which has your mind start to look at the world differently.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. We have 3 minutes. And so, what do we want to say, Bae? I think we want to say thank you to everyone who's been on the call. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thanks for your generous shares. I want to acknowledge the courage and vulnerability from everyone. What Bae said about it is a bit of a silly ratio, like 7.6 billion to 15 people on this call. But really, it's a lot easier to keep the lights off. It doesn't feel great when we see like, holy crap, look at this crappy pattern that I'm running. I don't like that. Maybe I'll just have another beer, or maybe I'll go hang out with my friends, or maybe I'll do whatever it is that I do that has me feel more comfortable than look at this. And so I acknowledge all of you for looking at this to whatever extent you have. It truly moves you forward, just being willing to look at it. That's the first and most important step. Anything you'd like to add before we wind down?
Yeah, hang on. Let me just turn off my backup always likes to do it at the worst possible time. Yeah, you know, like part of it is like that willingness to realize where we thought, I'm so different from my family. I'm not like my parents. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm literally oh God. I'm my parents. It happened. Right. So there's like the honesty and like owning that, like you are a product of where you came from. All of us are. That's not a problem. It's actually leverage, right? If you want to do something about it. And also just this last piece with Sophia, like one thing I want to point to when it comes to context is you got to be able to see it. You can change nothing until you can see where you are. And wanting to get out of the one you're in is not going to be good enough. Well, this one sucks and I don't want, like, I can't get what I want. Great, cool. Like you will stay there until you, one, can see it, and two, can articulate what it is you want that is different, that is not possible within the box you're in. And so that's sort of the key piece, which is wanting to get out of it is not enough to create something new. But recognizing you're there is the place we start.
I'm going to just mention the intensive and then we'll close down. Yeah, Bae?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Cool. So for anyone here or watching this after the fact, if you like this conversation, if you like this idea of getting below the level of the surface, below the level of our beliefs, breaking this sort of stuff up, that's what we do at the intensive. We basically dive into this and we have more time than 2 hours, so we can go a lot deeper and actually move us and you past this point. So if that is of interest to you, you can read more about that at Evergrowth Coaching /the-intensive, or you can just reach out to Bae and I. We love talking about this stuff endlessly. And if you have any questions about any of this, send us a message. We will talk your ear off about it. I promise you. We can't get enough of the conversation.
So questions, comments, things might bubble up after this. That's pretty normal, and you can probably expect it. We'd love to hear any questions, any comments, any insights that you've had. If you want to continue the conversation, please send them to either Adam or myself or both of us. And yeah, thanks for coming out and playing, you guys.
We love you guys. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Ciao.